Welcome to the Social for Brokers podcast. Today, I have with me Lisa Stones and Sarah Cave from Mortgage First. Now, Lisa and Sarah do something that's pretty impressive. They actually run mortgage classes in local schools, and it's not only beneficial to the students that they do it for, but it's also very beneficial for their business, even though they don't directly do it for that. So we're going to talk about how they do the classes, how it helps their business, and they're going to take us through the step-by-step of how you can do the same thing too, as well. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll probably notice that Sarah and Lisa look very much alike. They're actually sisters, and they've worked together now for about 7 or 8 years, they were telling me before we jumped on this. So we're going to have a little chat as well about how it is working together in family, because Mortgage First is quite a family-orientated business as well. So we'll get into a few questions around family and see how many arguments they've had in the last 8 years, because that's always the juicy bit. But ladies, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
So Lisa's been on the podcast before, but Sarah, this is your first podcast appearance, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So welcome. This is the first ever one to do. So thank you for jumping on. Now, before we get into it, a lot of people probably know who Mortgage First are. They see them all over social media. But I'd like to get a bit of an insight into who you both are, and what you've done in the past, your background, and how you've got here today. So Lisa, could I ask yourself first, please?
Yeah, so my background, I studied fashion marketing at university, and I worked for Topshop, Top Man at the time. So I left uni and went into retail management, worked for Topshop, Top Man for about 10 years. And then randomly I left that and set up my own wedding planning company, like you do. And I did that for another 10 years. But part of that then coincided with John, obviously my husband. He was a mortgage advisor and he set up Mortgage First. It was just him for the first 5 years, I think. And then he started to take on a couple of advisors, and then he asked if I would join Mortgage First, really initially just to help him with the day-to-day running, and which I did. So that was about 8 years ago now. And my role has developed. I do all the marketing, I do all the HR. So my title's operations, but it's a little bit of everything. Running the firm and everything that goes on behind the scenes. So
keeping everyone happy.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And obviously you joined 7 years ago. Is it nearly 8 years?
It'll be 8 years in March.
8 years ago. Wow. So John started it 8 years ago, and how many staff?
No, it was 15 years ago. John started.
Oh, okay,
yes.
right.
Yeah. So for that first 5 or 6 years, it was just him, and then really the growth started. And he always laughs when I say this. It was when I started, really. That's when the firm really took off, right, because we had that sort of structure in place that we could take on more advisors and more administrators, and you were one of the first administrators really that joined us.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. So talk us through your background then, Sarah. How did you get into this kind of role?
Yeah, so absolutely nothing to do with financial at
right.
all. So it was actually childcare that I used to be in, straight from school, college, worked in several nurseries, and then it was after I had my little girl, I was not ready to go back, actually probably not. And then it was a case of not able to really work weekends, didn't want the longer hours. So I approached you, didn't I? Just kind of said, oh, have you got anything, even just admin, just basic, even just making the teas and coffees, I'll do whatever. So it kind of started from that. It's just part-time, 3 days a week. And then roll on 8 years later, I'm still here, but
can't get rid of it.
Full-time. Full-time. Plus
and now running all the accounts and everything, and the wages for, what was it, like 45 staff now?
Yeah. Well, 17 total if you count in peak now. Really? As well. Obviously the acquisition from earlier on this year. So but yeah, you progress from admin to sort of a processor role, and then into accounts,
and even life insurance, just involved in that.
Yeah, you were
for a period. And then now senior of accounts. So
do you think it really helps? Because there's a lot of people in this mortgage industry that is at, say, the point where you guys were maybe 6 years ago, where they're thinking like, I need to hire somebody. But do you think it's really good to try and promote people within? Because like yourself, Sarah, you'll have been through the admin side, the processing side, the life insurance side. You have a much better understanding than just hiring a general person in accounts. Do you think that helps as a business, Sarah?
Definitely, and I think just generally knowing the system itself, and like I say, having the background from admin, processing, I kind of know all those little nooks and crannies.
You get it, you know how we work, you know how it all operates, and you know, you understand, not just accounts, but you understand all the elements. You understand how our advisors work, how our admin team works, and to be able to, then that helps you in your job.
And I think sometimes a lot of it does go back to accounts. It's kind of involved in a lot of other different areas, not just accounts. But again, everything just seems to link back.
All links up. And that's it, wherever possible, we always promote within, you know, naturally when there's a vacancy, we are always succession planning as well. We're always thinking, all right, if they move on or if they step up, and if that person goes on maternity leave, you know, we're always planning in advance and thinking they'd be great at that, and I'd love for them in that position. And you've always got to have a bit of a plan up your sleeve. So yeah, absolutely, within is our
always try and promote within.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so talking about the company and how people work and how you're trying to fit people in there and everywhere, there's a lot of people that would say steer clear of family when you're working in business. What are your two thoughts on that?
I mean, obviously I work with my husband as well, so I've kind of got it.
It starts from the top.
And I get it. I do get asked it quite often. How on earth do you work with your partner? I couldn't do that. And that's without me even realising I work with my sister. But before anything, you've got the trust there. You've got the respect there. And you just feel like you're in it together, I suppose. You've got that ultimate, I've got your back, you've got my back.
Well, that's it. There's always the thought of, I never want to let you down, because I don't want it to see, you know, come across like that. And hopefully I don't, kind of thing. So, yeah, definitely.
And that's where, so Mortgage First, from the outside looking in at you guys, is you do push this family vibe. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why the acquisition of Peak sat so well with you guys, because Peak were exactly the same. It's funny because on the podcast I've had yourself, John, and Reese all at separate times, and you all had very similar values. So I suppose you can't really say that you're building the family if you don't have your family work for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
definitely.
And it just feels right. And you know, it is hard at times in the respect of, I don't want anyone to ever think that Sarah gets special treatment or anything, whether that's internally or externally.
That's a tough thing as well, isn't it? To make sure that everybody's a level playing field.
But you don't, you know, and she doesn't at all.
And I even say that, I'm like, I don't at all. And like you say, I don't want people to think that. But a lot of people know that within the company. They know that. And they just,
if anything, it's probably the opposite, that she gets the harder end of the deal, where I'm like, can you do this? Can you do? And I never sort of snap at any of the staff, but if I do snap, it's probably at Sarah and John. You know, I don't, but nobody else sees that side of me like these two would. But I'm not that bad, I'm not really.
So what happens on a Sunday when you're all coming together for Sunday dinner? Is like a rule where you're not allowed to speak about business? Like if you get to this and the kids are like, you cannot talk about business.
We're not too bad, I don't think.
Sometimes it depends what we've got going on, I suppose. Sometimes the conversations do steer back to work.
And I think if we've got like such as big events on and things like that, then definitely.
Just interesting to know if Sundays are like a no business talking zone.
But you know, like our dad, for example, he'll be chatting away to me, and I'll say, oh, have you seen Sarah at work today? Has she not told you about so and so? And I'll say, yes, I've seen her, but we work on separate floors, and we're working. We've barely stopped for a coffee, let alone to chat about what we're doing, where we're going on Christmas Day. You know, there is not time for that. So, but yeah, I'm always really conscious of, she doesn't get special treatments, and I don't want anyone to ever think that.
And you can see that there's that family vibe, but it doesn't look as if everybody gets a free pass, or do you know what I mean? That you don't want to give that impression.
And like I say, I don't go out on every outing. I don't go to these meetings that you guys go to. That's it. There is
you treat like everybody else on the same seniority level in the business as yourself, you know. So In terms of pay banding, she's on the same pay bandings as other staff. You know, there's no kind of extra pay or anything like that. And what we find as well, I think sometimes staff think that I tell you everything. So if something's happening, like, you know, something's happening with a member of staff, or, you know, something's changing in the business, or I suppose what you'd say gossip, you know, the staff are, Sarah, what's happening? You know, Lisa's told you, surely she's told you.
But I don't know.
Quite unprofessional, isn't it, if people do that? Because regardless of if it's a family member, you're still at work, you're all staff, and there has to be that privacy.
If anything, I probably, again, tell her less than I should, because, again, I'm conscious. I don't want her to be put in a position that people think that she's got these special treatments and knows more than others, and et cetera, et cetera. So
I suppose it goes the other way as well, Sarah, doesn't it? Because there's going to be things that you'll know that you don't speak about. But okay, awesome. So talked about family. So it's easy enough to work together. So it might be that if you are listening to this and you're thinking about maybe hiring an admin or somebody that, because it's very hard to interview someone and take them straight off the bat when you don't really know much about them. So a family member could slot in quite nicely. And Sarah's testament to this, because now 8 years later, you're heading up all the accounts. So let's talk about the lessons in schools, because this is something I had Lisa on the podcast probably about 18 months ago now, and it was in its infancy. You just started it out, but you and I both could see this was going to be huge. And now you've actually got staff asking you to come and watch these lessons because they want to do it themselves. So if we take it right back to the start of doing a lesson in the school, how does a conversation start with a school, even to approach them to say, we want to come into your school and do a mortgage lesson?
So I think it was about 2 years ago we all kind of started, and it's something I've always wanted to do. And actually, growing up, I did want to be a teacher, you know, when I was younger. So I think there's a little bit of that in me, that I'm quite, you know, the idea of being able to stand up and be a teacher. But I went to a local networking event that was focused on employment, I think, and skills for local young people. And I met a head teacher of one of the schools. I said I'd love to be able to do a lesson about mortgages and money and savings, and they ripped my arm off. You know, they was like amazing. So he put me in touch with his head of careers at the school, and she was brilliant. The first lady that I met, she basically helped me put the lesson together, because it's just the logistics of how long does it need to be, what age children are we talking to, so how do we need to pitch it, can we have a PowerPoint, can we do some worksheets, so that, can they have access to calculators, all these things, and what other things are they doing at school at the similar time, so we can link that in for them, you know, if they're talking about careers. And so she helped me build the lesson essentially, and I did the first few sort of schools by myself, but then I asked you to get involved, and you know, you were really up for that. But it meant we can get to more schools, because it, you know, it is time consuming. You know, you've got to go and deliver a lesson, you know, and one lesson is only one class in one year group in one school. So you know, you've got to sort of think it's amazing, but every year group's probably got 4, 5, 6 classes. So ideally we try and hit a whole year group, don't we? So that's where 2 of us would maybe go for 3 weeks. We each take a lesson, we go back the following week, each take a lesson, you know, so it's an hour a week for 3 weeks. So it's not nothing really, but you've
got all the planning to do it. So
it is a commitment as well, you know.
It's always going to take time, isn't it? People think that this just happens, but you have to meet with the careers advisor, you have to make sure the lesson's planned, you've got to obviously have all your checks and everything done as well. But how many schools do you go into, Sarah? Because I just thought it was one, but it sounds like you've got quite a few.
There are about 5 or 6, 7.
I think so now. Yeah. There's I think I've done about 6.
Yeah.
I think 6, yeah.
Wow. 6. And what ages do you do the lessons for?
It's normally year 9s, year 10s when it's the careers full day.
So are they like 13, 14?
Yeah, so that age,
It seems to be those year groups, because that's the year they're either picking their options and they're starting to think about careers, so it ties in nicely. Once you get to year 11, they're focused on their exams, so you sort of missed the boat there, so that's why it always seems to be year 9 and 10.
And again, it ties in nicely with a lot of their maths lessons when it comes to, again, the life skills of looking at pay slips, bank statements,
Yeah.
overdrafts, what's the credit report. So there's a lot to cover. So again, with us going, we're covering all that as well. So it is mainly when it's their maths lesson and careers day, isn't it? So it covers,
so
a little bit.
It fits in perfectly with what they're saying. But I'd really be interested if you think back to a class that you've done maybe in the last couple of weeks. So you're stood at the front and they introduce you. What do you start the lesson with? How does it look? What are you doing activities with them? How has a lesson looked last week that you did?
Well, it starts with the objectives, because that was something that the school wanted us to put in there, that every lesson of theirs starts with what are the objectives, what are we going to get out of this lesson. So we explained that who we are, and the aim is they're going to learn what a mortgage is, why people need a mortgage,
and then calculate.
And then we actually have a go at calculating the cost of a mortgage, so it links into maths. So then we get them to tell us. We ask some questions, don't we? Because we want to find out if they know anything. And actually,
it's quite surprising.
They do know more than we think. You know, that the answers are usually, is it a loan, or is it from the government to help you get your house? So they know it's to do with the house, and they know it's to do with money and borrowing. So they're sort of piecing it together, aren't they? But we look at average house prices as well, and we get them to guess that, which is quite interesting. And every time we do a lesson, we have to go in and up the data, because obviously the house prices have obviously just
always going up,
rising and rising and rising. But then we also we find a house that's for sale near the school, and we talk about that. So we make it real. You know, we say this house is for sale, and quite often the kids will go, I know where that is. That's down the street near. You know, so it's really relatable. We're not just looking at properties in cities miles away. And then we're looking at what a deposit would look like on that property price. We'd look at, you know, and obviously we're talking to 13-year-olds, so we're going into basic calculations of an interest rate and the monthly payment. So, but we make it real, don't we? As real as we can.
And then you talked about pay slips and credit reports as well, because that's quite, like at 13, 14, I wouldn't really know what a pay slip looked like, let alone talking about a mortgage. So you're actually going past the mortgages, aren't you?
Good to a lender, don't we? We talk about what that looks like.
And we have different scenarios, don't we? Kind of saying like Mr. Jones, he works this amount of hours, that's his basic pay. He's looking at a house in Chesterfield, but then there's financial implications in that as well. So it's kind of saying, obviously, credit's okay, it's an all right thing, but as long as you're obviously repaying, you're not doing those missed payments and things like that. So it's just it's the basics,
but they get it as well. You know, and we quite often say our advisors have to explain what a mortgage is and the details of it to adults who don't understand it. So the fact that these youngsters seem to grasp it and to understand the concept of it, and we sort of finish by saying it's not what you earn, it's how good you are with that money. So in our sort of 3 scenarios, it's actually the person who is on the minimum wage would actually be the one who probably would qualify for a mortgage, because he's got good credit and you know, etc. So it's that kind of, you know, we don't want them sat there thinking, well, I'm never going to be able to afford a 320 grand house. We bring it back to, it's not about how much you earn, it's how good you are with that money. So, but
that's quite interesting. And as you say, that could be used for, it doesn't even have to be used in schools. There's a lot of people that have this perception, because if they haven't been taught that at school growing up, you probably think, well, the more I earn, the better I am at getting a mortgage.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not the case. And sometimes we just need to remind, talking from a social media point of view, is remind your audience the very basics. Go back to scratch and say, it's not actually about how much you earn, it's about how good you are with your money.
Yeah. But we finish the lesson. You always enjoy the bit where we finish the lesson, what we do at the end, don't we? With the
we pop onto Rightmove if we've got a few minutes left, and we kind of ask the students what their ideal property would be, where they'd like to live, and then we do look at ones in London and kind of say, look, this is on the market for 60 million. And
we try and find the competition is try and find the most expensive house, you know, and it's raising those aspirations. They're looking, thinking, wow. And I'll say, you know, So it comes right back to today, how, you at school, you're learning, you're doing your best, what you're doing after school, your career thing, it all ties back in that, everybody's dreaming of the lovely big house, so
incredible. Yeah, I think it's such a good idea. Such a good idea, and it sounds like you've expanded into more and more schools. And I suppose there is a space then for colleges, isn't there? Because then that's a bigger thing of to say, look, now is the time you can save for your deposit. These are the schemes that are available to you. So when you've done the conversation with the school, you've done the lesson. What's from a selfish point of view, and I know you guys do this for beneficial reasons to help the children, but what does it do for you guys as a business? How does it help?
Well, the amazing thing is when we obviously talk about it on our socials, the amount of people in the industry that reach out either to say, it's amazing, can you give me some pointers? I want to do something at my local schools. We've got lenders reaching out, wanting to get involved with us. Someone from our BDM from TSB came and did some lessons as well, or got involved with the lessons. We've got other lenders sending us additional worksheets, so that we can pass on to the schools, because we've got those contacts now. We've got the contacts with 7 schools locally, so we can sort of share all those resources amongst them all. So it's amazing, So it's helping to raise our profile,
locally. And you were saying before we came on the podcast is the teachers in the room as well. They learn a lot themselves, don't they? And they normally come up to you at the end and go, I need to speak to somebody about my mortgage. And that's a mortgage lead, isn't it? Without even thinking.
And we don't do it for that at all. We've got children, lots of our staff have got children locally. So we want to do our bit, and, it's instead of doing a charity event and raising some money, it's just a different way of supporting, where we live and the young people. But also as well, I suppose, it might help us find our next apprentice, and we have to talk about that at the end, don't we, and say what careers are in our industry, and we'll say, if any of you is interested, I want to see your emails in my inbox in a few years' time when you're leaving school. We're always open to new staff, so it hopefully helps us recruit as well in the future.
And
you never think about it from a recruitment point of view.
Yeah, and like you say, with the careers kind of part that we've got in the presentation, even my story, I'll kind of say that having no financial background to then being like a senior accounts in 8 years is amazing, from where I've come and started. So again, and we explain about Lewis, don't we, the apprentice that we had before, and he wants to go on to be an advisor. It's amazing.
Love it.
And we try and support the schools in other ways. So Paul, Lewis, and our old apprentice Lewis is at a careers fair this evening at one of the local schools.
Oh, really?
So Lewis has gone because it's the school he went to.
Yeah.
And he's going and standing at the Mortgage First stand and talking about, we only have one vacancy a year for an apprentice. So it's not necessarily to fill that, but it's just to talk about our industry and careers, and, to give the kids something to aspire to, and, just open their eyes to other industries.
But who's to say that? Sorry, go on, Lisa.
No, sorry. We said I'd do this. We'd just be rambling on. Because talking to people in the industry, I don't think I've met anybody who said they left school and said, I want to work in financial services. Everyone falls into it in some shape or form. So if we can get into schools and start talking about it, how many more young, fresh out of school, fresh out of college people are we going to get in our industry? That would be amazing.
And that's it. We kind of ask that question, don't we, at the end as well, of has anybody ever thought about working in the financial industry, even if it's in a bank or such as a mortgage advisor? And one student actually said last week, I want to work in an estate agent. And even that, again, something when I was at school, never thought you'd.
There was just never as much. Your eyes weren't open to as much, I don't think, back then, because the emergence of the internet and social media, you can pretty much Google whatever any job is like in the world. So it's great because it opens that up. But the two things I was going to say was, the first thing with the jobs fair thing is, do you think Mortgage First would have been invited along to the jobs fair if you didn't have these lessons going on? No,
Don't think so. No, maybe
opened a
a
door.
school might have just sort of searched for local businesses and sent a blanket email, but now we've got that relationship. It's just, hey guys, do you want to come? Can you support next month? We've got two or
Yeah,
three that we're booked in to do. So, but yeah, that I don't think they would have happened
would have happened. So just to
like
say,
now.
by doing those lessons, it opened so many more doors. And then the second thing is, although the job fair's there for Lewis to go along and say, look what I've done, and there's maybe only one job every year, but you never know the parents that speak to their kids that are a mortgage broker locally and go, do you know what, Mortgage First seem a nice bunch of people. They're trying to help my child learn about
Yeah,
mortgages. Therefore, I want to be a part of that. So
yeah.
it's actually as a side, I say side hustle, that's definitely not the word, but as a side benefit, sorry,
Yeah,
it's a great way just to strengthen your brand within that
yeah,
local area.
yeah.
So with the school lessons, we've talked about how it helps you in the local area, but you were talking before we jumped on the podcast, Sarah, that you took a few photos of the lessons and upload them to LinkedIn. You talk to us about how that increased the reach of the business.
Yeah, so straight away, obviously put that on, with obviously including school as well, within the hashtags and things like that. We then do have the schools comment on there as well,
Wow,
which
great.
is absolutely lovely to have that feedback. But other people as well. So I think I had somebody from L&G, somebody from the bank, again, just commenting and just saying, this needs to be done in every school, it should be part of the curriculum, we'd love to get involved. And again, like you said, it's just reaching out constantly to those more people, isn't it? And they think, oh yeah, we could do that, we want to help with that.
And the thing is, everybody wants to do something. I've not met anybody in the industry or who runs a business that doesn't want to do their bit. Everybody does. I just think they don't know how to, and they don't know where to start. So,
okay, so if we take that then, because that's a perfect example, everybody wants to get into schools and do a mortgage lesson because we all know how valuable it would be to students. I'm a mortgage broker. I'm a one-person band. I'm doing appointments. I'm trying to market the business, but I really want to do it. What do I do to start?
I think it's just start local. You need to either try and connect with those people in the schools through networking or through LinkedIn, or just contact the school, turn up at the school, ring the school, and say, I'm a local business. I'd really love to talk to you about doing some lessons. And I'd be very surprised if they told you to go away.
They're so grateful, aren't they, for us going all the time. And we even spent a full day, me and one of the mortgage advisors, we went and did mock interviews as well to support the schools as well, and it was brilliant. And again, to have the feedback from the school, to have it, you had the email, didn't you, come through saying like, thank you so much. And again, even just a couple of students, if they just walk away from those interviews feeling a lot more prepared and ready, like I say, to face the real world, isn't it? And
we've done our bit, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely.
I was asked to present an award at a school as well. They had some sort of end of year student awards, and they asked if Mortgage First could present the Mathematician of the Year award. So we gave the winner a little voucher, and we went over and presented it in front of all the parents. But we've got the links with the local schools now, and that's not going to go away, And yes, we might not be able to support every careers fair and every single lesson that they want, but we'll try our best, to do as much as we can.
And I think that's it, getting more staff involved now. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And again, it's lovely to see that, isn't it?
That they're wanting to get involved.
Definitely.
You're getting the buy-in from the school, aren't you? I remember having Mark on from Hudson Rose. I don't know if you've heard of him. And what he does is, I think he's got an affiliation with the school, but he sponsors the PTA and almost gives them money, and then gets into speaking to the parents and seeing how they can help. So that's just another way that you can build those local relationships with the schools. I think that's fantastic. I mean, as you say, the first thing that people need to do is to reach out to the schools, because it might feel as if that you're bugging them, but by the sounds of it, they want to try and mix it up with their students, don't they? Yes, there's the curriculum, but how can they get them ready for the big world out there? And if they do reject your advances, you've then got to think, well, have they really got the students' best interests at heart if they don't want them to learn about those things? Are there any other businesses that get involved like you guys do with the schools, or is it just you?
So we did the first few lessons, I was asked by the Derbyshire Careers Hub to become one of their enterprise advisors. So it's a volunteer role. So I've been partnered with a school that I then support that school, and I go for sort of quarterly meetings with them and work with the head of careers there to help do all the things like careers fairs and just help piece things together for them. And it's about making connections. So I've managed to link up other businesses who we know, or others within the industry to support other schools in different ways. So it's not just our industry, it's just who else you know. I look through my list and think, well, I know somebody who owns a gym, I know somebody who owns a cafe, so could those people go and talk to schools about their industries? So it's just making the links. And again, schools are crying out for any business to help
to get involved. So if you are listening to this and you want to try it, go out there, go and get in touch with the schools, go and have that conversation. Ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. We like to donate £10 to a charity of your choosing. I'll ask Sarah the question because I've had Lisa. We've done a charity donation before. Is there any charity you'd like us to make a donation to?
Probably the Sheffield Children's Hospital, if possible, please.
Sheffield Children's Hospital. Yeah, we will make that donation for you.
Is that the one where you climb down the building? You sailed down the building.
Did you?
Yeah.
So again, you weren't stuck on the roof, were you? It was for charity, wasn't it? Yeah.
So I did the abseil down. I think it was the hospital. Last year. So again, just raised a good amount of money with some of my friends. So really good.
Great. Well, we'll make that donation for you. Ladies, thank you so much for coming on and chatting through how to get mortgage into school. And sounds like you're happy working as a family. So I hope as long as that may continue. Thank you so much for both coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.